Friends, you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon,
And I'm Nathan.
and tonight we have another very special episode. We have the 2001 movie Ichi the Killer, which I imagine, Nathan, you have no history with this movie, and this is the first time you've known about it or seen it.
I watched it last night for the first time on Tubi.
Okay.
It's a very. I'm going to just say this. I'm going to qualify this, and we're going to discuss it as we go on. It's very interesting to watch it on an ad-supported platform where you're watching Ichi the Killer, and then we cut to an Olive Garden commercial. And I'm like, oh, all right, really screwing me up here. This is. I don't think this is hitting. Whoever your advertising department is, Tubi, you're not hitting the right notes. This is strange.
um, yeah, I watched it on Peacock, and they gave me. I got a before it started. It said like this was originally shot in 16 millimeter. It was blown up to 35, and now it's been has a 4K restoration. So did you get that same disclaimer?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. So we watched the same thing then. So I originally just found this on Stars.
Yeah.
When they just bought a shotgun load of movies and would throw them on their 12 different like cable stations because this is before streaming, so they just had like 12 cable stations. One of them just would show 4 movies for like a whole week.
Oh, okay. Weird.
Well, this is before like even on demand stuff, so it's like that was the best they could do for on
Oh,
demand.
you just show it in
Yeah.
rotation. Okay.
But they had like a whole cable channel dedicated to it. And now they have sub cable channels and stuff like that too, and over the air stuff too. It's all digital now, so you can subdivide each channel. And now you got like your local news station will have like a sub channel that just like plays nothing but like oh, here's MASH reruns. Here's Wild Wild West, the 70s, like, or was that even was that 60s? I can't even remember. It was in colors though.
Yeah, it was late 60s, early 70s.
So yeah, that's where I found it. I was like, wow, what a crazy movie. And like I think also I discovered this through IMDb. Because the first time I heard of the director, I was watching some kind of like the best horror movie, like I think it was like AFI's number 100 horror movies, and a movie he did called Audition came out there. Have you ever heard of Audition?
No, I haven't.
Okay. When people describe it, it seems like way more gruesome than the movie actually is. But
Okay.
because I mean, like what they describe is like this lady like injects this guy, like knocks him out with drugs and paralyzes him, and then saws off pieces of him with a piano wire, like bit by bit. And they make it sound like that's the entire movie when really
That's just going on the whole time.
but no, it's just like kind of like the back half of the movie has like 3 scenes of violence, and that's one of them. So, but it was a very effective movie. So that's what I first heard about, and then I looked up his movie database. So, like, Nathan, do you know anything about the director Takashi Miike? Which is, his name looks like it says Mike with 2 eyes, but it's pronounced Miike.
Yeah, I figured it was something else. I know he's like someone who has done. He's like a volume director.
Yes, he regularly directs 4 movies a year.
And he does everything from this kind of stuff to like family friendly movies,
Yes,
which is like that's a interesting range.
Yeah, so yeah, he is just like a director ass director.
And I know he has an interesting past. It's like they don't know if he graduated high school or college.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
Which you figure that's a death sentence in Japan, but he made it work. So
Well, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on Japanese culture by any means, but over the years, especially since we started doing the podcast and we've studied Japanese films, and their culture is so unique.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of people that like follow the red line, march in a straight line, think this way, do that, but they also have this wild internal life where they escape from that.
Yeah.
I think if you're a person that can facilitate that and be creative in that society, you can find a role.
Yeah.
Because they seem to like give a pass on the right kind of eccentric behavior. It's like everyone else is supposed to go to work, go to the engineering firm, whatever you do in Japan. But then there's the guys who like create the fantasy world there, and those guys, like I said, if you hit the right note, they love you.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't matter the quality of your work. It's like, this is great because we say so, but it almost seems like you're spinning a random wheel. Like, is this going to work? But yeah.
Ichi the Killer came out December 22nd, 2001. Of course in Japan, but I don't know when it came out internationally, but we'll just pick that here. Just
It had a full festival release because they did hokey things like hand out barf bags
yeah.
at the film festivals, which it was gory, but not, I don't know, there was something about it that made it cartoonish enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I picked up on is it seemed like whenever Ichi kills somebody, it's almost cartoonish because there's always like the blood spraying like 40 feet.
Yeah, the Kill Bill, like,
yeah,
just a fire hose of blood coming out.
But like whenever like Kakahara is torturing somebody, that's upsetting.
Yeah, he's using people as pin cushions, and also becoming one of the guys from Hellraiser.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
But yeah, so yeah, Miike just has a large volume of movies, and like they're all like of quality. Like they're all like, because one other thing about Japan is it has very specific subcategories for everything that like we don't have in America.
Yeah.
So like he was like, I mean, a comparison to American television and movies is like you have like TV movies where that's kind of like the lowest of low. Well, actually, no, like you have like Corman stuff where it's like we're just slapping stuff together. That's the lowest stuff, and then occasionally some genius comes out of it, but it's more about getting reps for future filmmakers rather than creating genius.
Yeah, a lot of it is it's so bad it's good, or you're watching it to see how bad it can be.
And you get like TV
people that have a lot of heart but no talent.
Yeah.
Kind of becomes that Ed Wood thing. It's like, I had a lot of heart, but
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah. And so yeah, like you have like TV movie stuff, which like they really don't make TV movies anymore. That they just rather make a mini series, which they don't even make that anymore. It's like, why don't we spend an extra 50 million just make like an 8-episode series season?
Yeah.
So.
Let's make a very dense, complex, interwoven season, which is like 5 movies worth of writing.
Yeah, because now it's like kind of flipped. Like now people don't want to direct feature films anymore. One, it's too hard to get the funding. 2, you can't make anything you want. You pretty much got it. You're locked into PG-13.
Yeah,
and so now people are like getting way more money, having way more freedom to make TV shows, which was like the complete opposite, like 20 years ago.
And they're uncensored TV shows because a lot of them are on streaming services.
Yes.
That's why I always laugh when they say people have no attention span anymore. It's like, oh, the hell they do. I mean, I watch TV shows that were based on a podcast and a partially finished book that have plots that interweave across 4 decades. And it's like, So yeah, nobody has an attention span, but they'll watch literally like, we'll have 5 seasons of that. I don't think it's an attention span issue.
But TV movies in America, back when they used to make them, they'd just be like kind of like capitalizing on recent news stories.
Yeah. The Day After is probably the most infamous one.
Yeah, that's probably the most popular one too. But then you have stuff like the John Bobbitt story and stuff like that, or just like crash together after a news story. And then you had TV, which is also seen kind of low, but that's also a place to get a start. Which there's just less money there and less prestige, and then all the money was in theatrical films, and that's where you got your prestige, and that's where the money was. So in Japan, it's similar, but it's like very distinct. So Miike would often like, all right, I'm directing a B movie, and it's just straight to video, and everyone knows what that is, and it's not really expected to be of worse quality. They just know there's less money in it, but there's less censorship. So you're probably getting something here that you're not going to get for your theatrical movies. And then he would do theatrical stuff too, and he would just like, and I don't know like what his involvement is. I don't know if he just like does the production and then like, all right, he doesn't like stay for the editing, or he doesn't write a lot of his movies, so it's all other people writing. So he's just like the most director guy in the world. He just comes in, shoots it, and he leaves an imprint on the movies he shoots. So he's doing, he's not just there just putting the camera, filming the camera, like he's making decisions. But Because I try to look into his process, like, man, how do you shoot so fast, or how do you get all these productions lined up? And like, I couldn't find any answers to that, other than like a lot of his movies are shot in a week or 2 weeks. So
Yeah, and there is actually like I think there's only a few cities that they make movies here, and they're like giant studios, like back to back to back
yeah,
physical studios. Like you could just walk from one set to another. It's like, okay, we're shooting all this on Monday for this movie, and then all this on Tuesday. And yeah, I know this guy said he was like a Kurosawa fan, a Lynch fan, a Cronenberg fan, a Verhoeven fan, and it shows.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, I could
yeah.
see.
Starship Troopers is his favorite movie.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, it shows.
um. Oh, well, at least that's what he said for an American magazine. So maybe he was, setting things up for the interview or whatever. Um.
Yeah, it based on this one sampling of his work, I was like, yeah, you're not. That's not a hard sell. I believe that when you say that.
Um. And then like, so like, even Audition, that's kind of like seen as like his big break of like people know him for. The same year he did this movie called Dead or Alive, which is kind of a B movie. It's a great like punk rock like gangster movie that's over the top and ridiculous.
Yeah,
Very fun. Like, there's a part in it where a guy like snorts a line of coke that's like strewn across like 7 tables, and it's just completely ridiculous.
that's the one where one of the guys looks like Elvis or something.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. He kind of looks like Elvis, and he's got the shades, and he kind of has a facial feature. And he probably has a pompadour too, kind of, because that's a whole another subculture there in Japan.
Pompadour subculture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like, there's like the cosplay in Japan is like crazy. There's like basically like the people keeping 50s greasers life alive are in Japan. Even like there's like cowboys and stuff in Japan too, where like their stuff is like super authentic and handmade, and it's like, what the hell is this?
That's got to be cool. Japanese saddle made for a horse in the style of the American West, but made by Japanese men. It's like,
Exactly.
oh, that saddle cost $10,000. That's gonna be nuts. And the coolest thing ever, it's something else that I can put on my list, like a Rolex that I'll never have, but I want for no particular reason.
And then there's like a later movie like Quentin Tarantino knew him, and I think he either produced it or came on afterwards. But like he's in a movie called Sukiyaki Western Django, which Takashi Miike wrote, and then Quentin Tarantino had a part in it, and I think he was also a producer. Which, like, it's a totally fine movie. It's like him doing a Western, and that's where I learned about like the main guy, like, who's got like this cowboy outfit, and it's like kind of this. It's like a mixture of like samurai and like Western gunslingers fighting each other. And so like, yeah, this guy has this elaborate costume, and of course one way they save money is because this guy is this guy. That's his costume that he made.
Yeah, they're not paying $100,000 for costuming.
And like, and he's like, he knew how to ride horses and stuff too, which like that was hard to come by. Because also like that was another thing. Like, he also does this movie. Like, if you look at his Internet Movie Database, one of the things that first pops up is a movie called 13 Assassins, which I saw. That's also pretty good. It's basically just 7 samurai, but more brutal.
Okay.
But still good. And, like, it's like, again, that dude shot 4 movies that year. It's like this. If there's like a 45-minute action scene at the end of the movie, it's like, how does he do this? Because again, it's like of quality. I mean, you can, because like the telltale sign of like low budget movies and stuff where it's, and there's even some of it here, but there's kind of enough quality here you can kind of like lynch in your way out of it. Where it's like, oh, maybe it meant this, or maybe they ran out of film stock. I have no idea. But yeah, you have like low budget movies where they have like extra long takes because they just need to fill screen time. You'll have things that don't edit together well because they made poor choices and didn't give enough coverage when shooting a scene, and so the editor had like nothing to work with. They'll be like, because like American fast directors, there's the Stevens, there's Spielberg and Soderbergh. They shoot movies really fast. They would shoot 2 movies a year sometimes. But Spielberg is fast because he gets a lot of setups. like one or two takes and lots of setups. And then he walks away and he lets the editors do their job.
Oh, okay.
Soderbergh, he's usually his own DP, so he knows how to just like do everything quickly himself. Which Robert Rodriguez is another person like that. So they're just like volume setup guys. That's kind of how they shoot really quickly. And then you have like the Clint Eastwood way of directing, which he's a good director, but he came through it basically through like a production view. So Clint Eastwood often will just do one take and then move on. He does not like sit. He's not like Kubrick or Fincher, where like we're gonna do 89 takes till I get what I want in my head. So he's like, well, we're done. And so like a lot of actors like sometimes don't know how to like work with Clint Eastwood because they realize like you get one take and you're done. So.
Yeah. So do your best.
Which I don't think I wonder if I don't think Clint Eastwood's ever worked with Al Pacino, but I bet that would be a lot of clashing of heads.
Oh yeah.
But usually Al Pacino was the guy who'd bring too much energy in the first take and then lose it by the fifth take. So maybe
Yeah, it wasn't like you did 6 takes with him because the sixth one was the one you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes like that'll be a problem with in low budget filmmaking is that like, oh, they didn't have enough takes, but it doesn't. Even though there's stuff here that feels like that might be a problem here, like most of his movies don't feel like they are hindered by their budget. I mean, of course, there's some CGI effects they have here that are almost comical, but it's like, well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's also they don't really have a system for that over there yet. At the time, probably.
Yeah. Also, the weird thing there is like, well, also like the big thing there is animation. Like that's where you get like oh, this stuff is amazing. Like all these kind of like stories and shots and how they're able to cram basically 1 hour dramas into 22 minutes because there's not really hour-long cartoon shows in Japan. But
Yeah.
there's 30-minute cartoon shows or animes, and they explore the breadth of every storytelling. Whereas in America, it's always seemed like most cartoons were just for children, so that was always a hard sell. Where now it's like, just kind of merged. But then they would do stuff in Japan where they do like live action versions of animes, and
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen like the trailers for these movies, but they're awful.
The only ones I've seen that was Star Blazers, but that was
Okay.
actually cool because that was a big budget sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen a lot of that.
Because you'll see like, oh, it's live action, and then you see them do like CGI versions of like the anime, and it doesn't match up at all. It looks bad, and it's like, wait, these are really talented people. Like, why do they keep doing this? Who's watching this? I have no idea.
Star Blazers look cool, but then I heard that was like the most expensive movie made in Japan. It's like,
Okay.
oh, they must have brought on some people that
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, they clearly have talent there, but
the whole ship is a giant shotgun.
yeah.
They show all this mechanical stuff going on, which was in the cartoon, but the live action made it seem a lot more intense.
But it always seemed weird that it seemed like, why are basically New Zealanders and Americans the only people that can do CGI correctly? And the thing was probably money and time.
Yeah.
But well, I don't know, that doesn't work with New Zealand necessarily, but they got a budget behind them eventually. When you shoot three
like
$100
New
million
Zealand,
movies behind you.
Australia and Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, like the government pays for your education, so you can like explore this stuff. But like in a lot of countries, it's just like America, it's like, well, if you're going to get an education, you better get something that pays, or have some kind of means of financial support because, so I think a lot of people, it's like, why does Britain have so many great actors or whatever? It's like, well, because they can explore it, because they don't have to like get health insurance. Yeah, but then they also come to America to make all their money, so there's another side.
Well, that's the weird thing, because like Japan, like they can make great video games, they can make great anime, but the in between where you have CGI, they're not great at it, and I don't know why. And again, maybe that's not where the top people are filtering, but that Godzilla -1 movie did win the Oscar for special effects last year, so maybe they're catching up. So
yeah, well, and you got to remember, this is America is the computer capital of the innovation capital of computing in the world.
Yeah.
Like
But
there's
man,
no
you know Japan, they have a lot of innovation, but it's also
they do,
but
but
it's also very like located to just Japan. So
yeah, it's very unique to what they want to do because they have amazing like smartphones and cell phones, but they never sell them anywhere else
yeah.
because no one wants to deal with a phone where it's like this is a hobby now too. You must figure out how to make this work. And you don't sell that into the American market.
Um
I mean, all my computers are based on that principle of like I just want something slick that works. I
yeah.
don't. It's not a hobby. I'm not interested in like, oh, can I glue stuff on this and make it last forever? It's like, well, some people can, but I'm not that guy. So
Yeah, I mean that's what happened. Like Sony Ericsson or whatever, or I think in Japan it was just Sony, and then I think abroad it was Sony Ericsson. But they'd have exclusive Japanese cell phones that did all this crazy stuff, and people would go there. It was like, man, you should see the Japanese cell phone. And then like 2 years later, the iPhone came out, and like, never mind.
yeah, yeah, they're cool, but they're almost like steampunk at this point. It's like that's just an anachronistic way to do what the iPhone's doing. Well, it's like that documentary I watched about the Yak Mercedes from the 90s, the Yakuza V12 Mercedes that were
Yeah.
almost sold exclusively into the Japanese market to organized crime figures because they were, you know, I mean, Japan was such an insanely wealthy country in the mid to late 90s. Like there were people like, yeah, I'll spend 150,000 US dollars on a V12 car in a country where gas is almost $7 a liter. It's like, yeah, I will. And they had GPS in them, but it was localized GPS that the
Okay.
Japanese set up in the. So yeah, they had like cars like Mercedes Benz. Now they didn't have the touch screens. But they had you press the buttons
Yeah.
and you had a thing. So they didn't have like touch screen stuff. Is like that's what separates the mid 2000s from every other age of technology is all the touchscreen stuff
Yeah.
because now you don't have to come up with these cool physical cases and buttons. It's all gone now. It's all touchscreen. But yeah, they had stuff like that, but it was all local to Japan
Yeah.
because they had the government just set up like, yeah, we're going to have these towers that emit location signals, and we can put a computer in this car that'll get you where you want to go based on those signals. Whereas like GPS, like we use, that's global positioning. Because for some reason, the good people at the U.S. Department of Defense decided to orbit hundreds of satellites so we can get to the grocery store quicker. Whatever other benevolent good they were with these global positioning satellites.
Yeah, I think someone did the math on that. They said like, well, thank God the government did that because they tried to work out like, what if a private company did that, and it would like basically cost you like $100 a month.
Oh yeah, it would be insane. I mean,
Nope, you get it for free.
yeah, because it was you paid for it. Believe it or not, you funded it. Well, I remember like like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, they turned it into an antenna.
Yeah.
In the late, they're working. It was a super classified project. They were working on it into the late 80s, early 90s. And it was the ultimate, like it was UHF, but it was like a kind you never had seen before because they could transmit data. They could do because they've had UHF for a long time, but we made it like super fast. They spent billions burying cables in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to send launch codes to nuclear submarines and to have like live communication with them. And then the Soviet Union collapsed and they're like, yeah, dig it up. We're done. We don't need it. Holy crap. I forget what that was called, but I just watched a documentary about it because it all just finally became declassified.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, when you look at the amount of money we spent, just like, because these were like cables that had like wires.
Didn't it have some cryptic name like Private Shade or something like that?
Yeah, it was something weird.
Thorn.
Because yeah, it was something I forget. They said what it had a couple different names because they used to call UHF transmissions seances.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because the submarine would come up and put its antenna up, we had these super long antennas. Sometimes they trailed them. I think we started trailing
Toad
them the
sonar array.
No, these were just for the UHF.
Oh, okay.
Because UHF, because it went through the Earth. It couldn't be affected by electromagnetic radiation. Because one thing about nuclear war is there's a lot of electromagnetic energy, and in the 80s that really screwed up electronics badly. And so they're like, how do we transmit? It's like, we transmit through the Earth with ultra low wave,
Yeah.
ultra low frequency transmissions. But the problem is when people would talk, you'd get messages that had a very weird, like, hello, like it had a ghostly quality. It's actually, there's no recordings of it because it's all still classified, but yeah, they used to say it was a really weird way to get data back and forth. So then they came up with this thing. It's like, well, we can turn the Upper Peninsula of Michigan into a giant UHF antenna and just pour power through it and get all kinds of signals out so we can end the world very quickly. Because if you're sending secret launch missiles to a ballistic missile submarine, things have gone sideways in a serious way. Like you're not sending them. Usually it's not a like happy birthday, Captain. No, that's not the message you're sending on that.
But yeah, also in Japan they have very specific subgenres. Like there's even one I learned about recently called an isekai, which is like a story where people are transported from the regular world to like a fanciful world. That's a whole subgenre in Japan.
Okay, it's not just an element of a story. That is the
because I found there's an anime they have on Max now. The place you go for HBO, and they have a Suicide Squad anime specifically called Suicide Squad Isekai, where they get transported.
Suicide Squad goes to like unicorn worlds or something.
Yeah. But it's all Japanese produced, but it's
animated girls that are anywhere between the ages of 12 and 25, but you don't know, and that's part of the fun.
That's in America, so they leave that out. So.
Oh yeah, they're talking about that. Some comedian on Joe Rogan said something about it's like the stuff that was acceptable and is still acceptable in other countries. It's like you got to get more candles on that cake, dude. And we need to identify how many candles are on that cake before these girls start taking their tops off. It was something like that.
Well, I think. Well, I mean, I don't want to make excuses for it, but it's still gross. But like, I mean, it kind of works the same way in how the country works. But like Japan, I think the age of consent is 14. So a lot of coming of the age stories are 14-year-olds. Whereas in America, age of consent is like 18, so your coming of age stories are 18.
Yeah.
So and then they bring them over here, and then they have to rewrite everything. It's like, oh no, they're 18. Don't worry about it. They're in college. It's like, no, they aren't.
Yeah. Is that their college school uniform they're wearing? Look, it's college uniform. It's like you have to wear uniforms in college. You're adults unless you're at a military academy or something, which they're not. Because we forbade you guys a military because you're crazy.
They just had the super police.
Yeah, the super police, F-16 police. Abrams tank cops.
We're just waiting for the kaiju. Again, that's another subgenre. Kaiju, like the Godzilla in a suit, and we have like the miniature building stuff. That's a whole subgenre in Japan.
Yeah, that's the stuff that like transferred well over here. We like that for some reason.
Yeah,
but I don't think we liked it for the same reasons. So I think the Japanese, that was always a metaphor for tsunamis, earthquake, or later on the atomic bomb. It's like, these are disasters. We see that, and it's like, how can we defeat Godzilla? That's immediately what we're thinking. It's like, this is a problem to solve. For them, it's like, this is a cultural horror.
Or you have stuff like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which was brought over here and kind of recast with American actors, but they kept all the footage where everyone had their masks on. So
that was actually brilliant. We're going to save 70% of the cost of this.
But like that's a whole subgenre there too, of like a squad that has masks that joins together and makes a Megazord of something. There's hundreds of those in Japan.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, like that. So that's kind of like where Miike kind of fits in. Is like there's all these subgenres, and he's like, sure, I'll do all of them.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of a genre director.
Like once simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah. This one's like a combination because like this is a Yakuza gangster movie, this is a psychological thriller, and this is a horror movie all in one.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like Cronenberg, and Yakuza. Which, have you heard about the sad tale? This came up this week, and I listened to something about it because I knew we were going to be watching this movie. Have you heard now that Yakuza in Japan is aging out?
Okay, that makes sense.
There's no young people who left to want to join or be a part of this, because I guess that's not like, because like here you got the mobs, but they're all like ethnic mobs.
Yeah,
that's kind of your barrier to entry. It's like if you're not Italian or Russian or whatever, then you're not, you can always work for those guys, but you're not going to get into the echelons. I guess the Yakuza is just like a structure you can join.
Oh, okay.
And then, the further in you get, the more marked you become. But yeah, and it's like now the average age of a Yakuza member now is like 54 in Japan.
Okay. That
So
makes
it's like
sense to me. So.
the sun is setting on that. But I guess there's a new more violent group that's all about drugs, and those are the young people.
Okay.
Because the Yakuza are a little hands off on the drugs.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like drugs in Japan are viewed like they have some pretty harsh penalties for
It's
that stuff.
fucking crazy.
Yeah,
so
cocaine. It's like that's 50 to life, man.
So I was playing this video game. Oh, what is it? It's one of these. Maybe it's not here. It was a game that deals with like a sort of like the it's like a private investigative team, and so it deals with sort of like the law structure of Japan and how it works. And so the Japanese voice actor for this guy, he was caught like with drugs, and I think it was just weed. And he was basically, they've taken him out of the video games and basically everything. They're basically like erasing him from all his things he's ever done because he was caught with drugs. I was like, that's fucking insane.
Oh yeah. And that seems to be a thing in Asia too, because they will just kill you in China if they catch you with drugs. They'll just not if you're a foreigner. They'll just stamp your passport, never allowed entry again, and send you on your way. But yeah, they seem to have a thing about drugs. But then I've heard there's a delineation there. Like if it's white people using what they call white people drugs, then that's like, oh well, that's just they're crazy. Let them do that, or at least it's going to be a slap on the hand. But if it's like opium or something that really devastated those societies at one time, it's like, no, cut his head off.
And also I learned like in the legal structure, and I'm not sure, maybe there's a lot of like, what do you call it? When you don't go to trial, you make a plea,
pre-trial diversion type.
But basically, like, well, like, I guess in Japan, like, so here it's like the burden of defense is on the prosecution. Yeah. Like, you have to prove that the guy did it. You can't like.
Yeah, the burden is on the state to prove your guilt. You are not required to provide for your innocence, like almost every other country in the world.
Well, it's the opposite in Japan. You're required.
Oh, it's the opposite everywhere else. We're the only country that has that. The Britain has it too, but it's so expensive to buy into the legal system there. Like it is here too, but it's not unimaginably expensive yet. But yeah, every other country, like Germany, it's the other way around. Okay. Like you have to prove your innocence because the state has decided in your guilt.
Yeah.
You must convince a panel of judges or whatever. We're the only people that have, us and the British, the only people have the system we do. I don't know about the Australians, but.
But like Japan basically has like a 99% conviction rate.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah.
So it's.
Yeah. If you go to trial in Japan, your success rate is like low or non-existent. You always got to pay someone off or make some kind of deal. Because I've heard like if you go there and get into a fight or something as a foreigner, it's like, oh, you're screwed. you are done.
Also this week I said, because he like Mike literally has 100 films he's directed.
Yeah,
I've been going through some of his. I watched 13 Assassins. It's on Netflix, I think. So yeah, it's decent. The other one that he made for Netflix called Lumberjack the Monster. It's a really good like psychological thriller. Which I suggest that. The title.
That's his most recent one, right?
I mean, no, he has something he did this year, but it wasn't that. That was last year. But like again, like this guy. Well, this guy's kind of slow. He's been only shooting 2 to 3 movies a year. In 2022, he only did one thing, but he shot an entire TV show, so that makes up for it. So.
Well, that was also COVID, which was a big thing in Asia.
Yeah. Well, actually, he shot this. It's a show called Connect. It's on Hulu, and I think it's like it was like produced by South Korea, but he shot it. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Lumberjack the Monster is really good. So yeah, I recommend that. And then last night I saw as well. It's you can't. It's not streaming anywhere, but you can get it on Internet Archive. It's called Shield of Straw. It's really good. It's there's like this guy who. Well, it starts out, there's basically like a dead girl, and then you see this kind of old guy kind of like, and then they cut to like an old guy kind of staring in the rain. He's like, seems angry. And then there's like, and apparently he's like a billionaire, and so he's putting out like a $10 billion reward, which would be $10 million American, to kill this guy who he thinks killed his granddaughter, which you don't know explicitly if he did it or not. So that's kind of like the dilemma. And then there's even like an extra thing where there's like a side pot of money where it's like anybody who gets prosecuted for attempted murder, like we're gonna cover your legal fees.
Okay.
And so basically, it kind of like creates, it almost turns the movie into like kind of a zombie movie, because it's like you don't know who or when somebody's gonna turn and decide they're gonna try to kill this guy. And it's also, and then like as you get further in, you realize like, oh, actually the most dangerous people is the police force. So now you can't even trust the police, and they can't trust each other. And then like the guy who you don't know if he did anything at first, the further you get in the movie, the more of a total shithead, and he's like, he probably deserves to die. So it's like, it's a really interesting movie. And again, like that, it doesn't seem like it's a cheap budget. It doesn't seem like, I don't know how fast he shot it, but like also like now he's just in digital film and stuff like that, where it's like with Ichi the Killer here, like they're limited, like they shot it on 16mm, but now it's like he can make anything, it's all the same cameras now, so he can make everything look as good. It just depends on how much time you have to shoot it. So
Yeah.
So yeah, then the cinematographer here is Hideo Yamamoto, who the only thing I think you might recognize he did is he did the Japanese Ringu 2. He was cinematographer there. And
Okay.
he was a cinematographer on the American version of The Grudge. So that might be the only other thing you recognize him from. Written by screenplay is Sakichi Sato, and then it's based on a manga by Hideo Yamamoto, and I believe those aren't the same Hideo Yamamotos. There's two different Hideo Yamamoto.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, like, wait a minute.
Which that kind of I don't know if that clued me in or anything, but it's like, hey, what's with all of Japan? Like, they're not having kids anymore, and it's like, well, I bet their lifelong commitment to xenophobia has led to like, oh, like, the only thing worse than screwing a foreigner is screwing your cousin, so let's just stop having sex.
Yeah. Ruin sex. Just put an exclamation point and a sad face after it. Sex? No.
Cast is Tadanobu Asano, Nao Amori, and Shinya Tsukamoto, which there's only one guy here you might know. So, but put their names there anyways. So we start with Act 1. We got kind of like spastic shots in editing, which I don't know if they did this on purpose or just kind of like, we need to start with something weird to put you in a mood of a psychological, distant mood.
Yeah, it was kind of like a lot of wavy camera shit.
Yeah.
Okay. This is discordant.
And then we start the movie on a Yakuza mahjong gang, and then then a hitman gets a call with a crying child on the other end. Which is this Takano? This might be him, and his son is Takeshi. Okay, that might be what's going on here.
Yeah, that's his son.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a hard time picking up names on this, so there's a lot of things I might get it wrong.
Too.
Because the only ones I know is Ichi and Kakahara. That's the ones I know for sure, because they say those names all the time.
Yep.
And then we get like the credits are like kind of like in a spoke wheel as it turns. It's almost like a jackpot machine brings the letters in. It's pretty cool. I don't know.
I did like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we cut to a man's beating up a woman, and then we see someone sneaking around out back. And then the man rapes the woman as Ichi here, this guy sneaking around, watches from the window. Just getting this just right up front. It's like, oh, this is unsettling and unpleasant.
Yeah.
And then you think like, oh, is he going to say...
This woman's getting beaten to like a pulp.
Yeah.
Like, not just one beating. It's like a continuous beating.
Yeah.
Where her face is getting like deformed and stuff. It's like, this is crazy.
And then the rapist sees Ichi and runs to the balcony where Ichi is gone, but a load of semen is dripping off the plants. You're like, what the fuck did I just walk into?
Yeah, I had to stop and rewind that because I was like, is that one of those aloe plants? What's going on? It's like, oh no, that's cum. Because Because I'm like thinking, like, is this a weird Japanese plan I need to know something about?
Now, I did warn Nathan before he watched this, like, make sure no one's around when he watched this, because
Yeah,
it's...
don't watch this at school.
Because someone's gonna be like, if anybody walks in at any moment in this movie, they're like, "What are you watching?" And like, I have no explanation. I don't even know what I'm watching. So.
Oswald is, hey, come here, honey. You gotta see this. This is what your husband's doing.
Then we get Ichi.
Oh my God, is this what's going on in Japan?
In 2001, this is going on in Japan.
Yeah, this is really going on everywhere. It's just this is Japanese style.
Yeah. Then we get the Ichi the Killer titles come out of the semen. So it's just,
which is amazing.
Yeah. Then we cut to a van where like some guys are doing drugs, and then like they're the cleanup crew for Ichi, but they're here for a different. But yeah, so like Ichi's like a killer, but we don't. Well, we get that in the title, but here we'll see like what's going on. They get a call, and then they head up to a building. They have like backpacks and a wheelbarrow, but then they hit some stairs, and the wheelbarrow's gone. So they probably just leave that at the bottom to grab everything afterwards. Then they hop into a room. They turn the lights on, and then there's just blood and guts all over the room. And you kind of you don't really see the guy's face. You kind of see like his back, and he's just like ripped open from the middle, and just there's blood and guts everywhere.
That's insane. It's a comical amount of death.
Yeah. And then we dissolve to the room just being clean, which I imagine.
And this is when I dissolved to a scene of like, come on into, which one was it? It was, Olive Garden. And try lasagna. And I was like, lasagna, yeah. All you can eat breadsticks, unlimited.
So yeah, now the room's clean, and then we were introduced to Kakahara, who's played by Tadanobu Asano, who the only thing you would probably recognize him from is that there's the buddies that Thor has in the Thor movies called the Warriors 3, and he's the Japanese guy in the Warriors 3.
Oh, that's that guy? Okay,
yeah.
I know who that is.
But... he is fantastic in this movie, and he plays such a horrible character.
Yeah.
He's kind of a cross between Pinhead and the Joker, so it's really hard. It's a really weird character.
And he manages to be consistently unlikable and scary.
Yeah.
At the same time.
But also like occasionally a sense of humor. It's like, which that's kind of like that's kind of like one of Miike's like strongest things. He takes horrible characters and he'll find ways for you to empathize for them for at least a moment.
Yeah.
Like nobody is that black and white, but so he that's one of his tenets of his movies. Like find some empathy with a character. They don't have to retain it, but just like that's on you. So like, I see what's bad with this character. I still think they need to die though. So he turns around and smokes, and he's got like scars all over his face, and he's got these scars on his cheek, and smoke comes out the scars. And he's got lip ring, which I guess is just holding his mouth together. Or at least that's what it's presumed here, and they have stuff later on with that, but it's weird. So.
Yeah, it makes him. Yeah, later. He's like, is he a demon?
Yeah. Their boss is missing, so that's a guy who Ichi killed. Which we don't see Ichi kill him.
No, it's just implied.
Yeah. Well, I think that because there's this cool thing because Ichi has this weird suit where it's like a motorcycle. It's almost like a MotoGP where it's got like the armored plating all over and stuff, so when the guys fall off motorcycles, and it's got this yellow one on the back, which they'll have like sometimes like they'll shoot the scene and it'll look like it's all in darkness, but then the yellow one sticks out. It's really cool looking.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool suit. Yeah, I think it was like a Japanese motorcycle crash suit or something, lay down suit or whatever they call it.
Yeah. And so I think there's kind of a montage of that one in the darkness, and I think that's like when he killed the guy, but you don't know if that's going on. It's just kind of implied, I guess. So yeah, the boss was just killed, but they don't know that yet, and Kakahara is really insistent that like he's still alive somewhere. And they also know that there's 3 million yen and some girl in the wind somewhere, which I'm not sure which girl they're referring to, because it's not Karen, it's some other girl. Is that the girl that just gets randomly tortured later on?
I believe so.
Okay, because like I don't.
That would explain that, because it's like, did they just bring this girl over to torture her? And
Yeah,
then
because I don't have any recollection of like did I miss something? Which again, that could be just like the quick shooting schedule and they just didn't have anything, or it's something I missed. I don't
I'm gonna write that in as that's what I thought it was at the
know.
time, because there's a lot of things in this movie that, like, I know I've read all the subtitles and watched it, but what's going on? More than a few times.
um, well, that's also a thing, and maybe it's to Mike's benefit is that because I don't know Japanese, and like I don't know like good or bad or whatever. I don't know if these are bad actors.
Yeah,
To me,
that's a good
they
question.
seem fine. Like maybe if like people like if maybe if movies we think that there's a lot of bad acting in, but like if it gets sent overseas with the subtitles, they think they're good actors. Like that probably happens. But like yeah, again, I don't like I think like I can pick up on like there seems to be like just like the physical performances of people. It's like well they seem to be doing something different and they seem to know what they're doing. So it's like I assume this is of quality. So
Yeah.
and sometimes you can pick up on people where it's like it seems like the big guys. It seems like they just kind of do a gruff performance. It's like, oh, there's not nuance here, but they're doing their job. So.
Well, Japanese is one of those languages I don't know anything about, but I've heard a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like, and when you watch movies like this, and I don't know if this is acting language, like this is stage acting, but
Oh yeah,
Japanese
that could be different. Yeah.
seems to be a thing where it's like it's a lot of talking like this, and all of a sudden, no, don't do that, But it's like it has very random, like,
Yeah.
which it's like, yeah, that's punchy, but do people really talk like that, or is this like, are we doing stage whispering? What are we doing?
Huh. Yeah. I
I
guess.
don't know enough about that language to really say.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as I know, it's all fine to good acting. I don't know. I don't know any
Yeah.
necessarily bad
Well,
acting.
it's like they're just over the top anyway,
Yeah.
or a manga or whatever this was. What I call a comic book, 'cause I don't know much about either one. So
Yeah, I never read the comic book. I was just like, if this is anything like the movie, it's probably going to be worse than the comic book. So.
yeah,
Or maybe not. I don't know. Then we follow like a middle-aged man taking groceries in a house. He walks in. He opens up a door. We see Ichi's like passed out playing video games, which I don't know if that's a thing. Is like, see, Ichi plays violent video games, but he's just playing like Tekken, which isn't really like a violent game, other than people like martial arts at each other. They don't rip each other's heads off or anything like that. So, then we cut to a lady's talking to a guy, and she's going in and out of English. This is Karen, which I think she actually goes in and out of a lot of different languages. Because there's a scene later on with Gigi, and I think they're speaking Chinese when they're talking to each other.
yeah. No, she is a Chinese character as written, and she's
okay.
English speaking. So that's why, because she'll do her dialogue in English sometimes, and people will respond to her as if they completely understand her, which is kind of because they're not speaking English, but she is.
Yeah.
Because the first time I heard it, I was reading the subtitles, like, wait a minute, what? She's speaking English. It's like, is she doing some kind of weird, like, I'm gonna pantomime the subtitles just to freak the audience out?
Yeah.
No, that's not what's going on.
It's an interesting choice. It makes her character like stand out. So
Yeah.
She
is actually from Singapore.
Okay.
And she does speak English. She's a beauty pageant winner.
Yeah, she's going in and out of English. She's talking about a dog she had and how like she had a neighbor and she killed that dog, but then she laughs it off like it didn't happen. But then you probably think, no, that probably happened. She probably killed that dog. So. Again, there's nobody redeeming this movie really. So. Then Kakahara comes in to question Karen because he thought that the boss ran off. If anybody, it would be her. But she's like, nah, he's dead. But Kakahara won't believe that. Then there's like a table of gangsters who are like having a birthday party and shooting up drugs. But these were the guy that were like kicked out of the Yakuza. And I can't remember why. Did you pick up on that, Nathan?
I know they were kicked out, and I'm not sure.
Is it because they were doing drugs?
I think that was it, because
Okay.
they were like, what was they said it a certain way. It's because, yeah, they're like cleanup guys now. They're like subcontractors, but not actual members.
Yeah.
And I think that it's like they were unreliable addicts, or there was something said like that by one of the people.
And also this where Gigi's is there, which he doesn't. He just kind of seems to be standing by. He's not really like doing drugs or eating cake or anything like that. He's just kind of standing by, which he's kind of maybe the most mysterious character, because I don't know if he was former Yakuza or he got kicked out or if he's just a guy who likes to manipulate people. Because seemingly he's the mastermind of everything that happens here, but like nobody ever puts it together.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah. um. Then we cut to Ichi's working as a waiter and he's like not doing a good job. And then his boss like puts a knife on the table and is like convincing him to kill himself, which is just so now you feel sympathetic for Ichi. Is like, who is this guy? He seems very pathetic, but then also he's like coming on balconies watching women get raped and beaten. It's like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And he's presumably, had just killed a Yakuza boss. So he's also a badass too. So, then we cut back to the gang. They're still looking for the boss, but they're coming up empty. There's a ring at the doorbell. This is where Gigi from the club comes in, which I guess in my subtitles it says Gigi means old fart. So I guess this is not really his name. It's just what people call him.
Yeah, it's like a nickname.
So Gigi talks about like a porn racket looking for revenge. It's something where like the Yakuza took over their business and which, like, again, I don't know how that works there other than I saw there's, like, the Netflix show, The Naked Director? Yeah, I think it was The Naked Director. It's about, like, pornography in the 80s in Japan.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember that. You were telling me about that.
Yeah, it's a great, for, like, it's basically Japan's The People versus Larry Flint. It's very well done. And even Miike directed a few episodes for that, so that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
There's a season 2. I never watched it. I only found that out like while looking through this stuff. The weird thing there is it seemed like I don't know if shame was like attached to like the porn industry. It seemed like because the way it seemed like everybody in that show is like, well, here's my main job where I'm like at an engineering firm, but like I'm not standing out. I'm not working my way up the ladder, and like, but here's my side gig. And it's like, well, I might as well do porn as a side gig, just kind of have a second talent or something like that. And everybody also either like was a singer or knew an instrument. And they're just like, are just Japanese people wildly talented and their talents are going to waste at all times. And maybe, I don't know.
He's an engineer and he can play like some kind of strange, what do they use? What do they call those guitars they have, like is it nylon strings or the strings aren't made out of metal, they're made out of some kind of plastic, and that's how you get that sound.
And then on the side they're like a bouncer at a porn club or something.
Yeah. And then they make pottery, world class pottery. It's like, man, we really suck at it.
Why don't you have a girlfriend? It's like, yeah.
Really got to repress yourself to get these kind of hobbies.
So Kakahara, they're talking about this porn racket that they kind of screwed over, and so Kakahara tells Takayama, which is one of his heavies, to go pick up this guy for questioning. It's Suzuki. So we cut to Suzuki, which I believe we've never met before.
No.
He wakes up to Kakahara cooking shrimp while he's like suspended naked by hooks in his skin, which is like, wait, what the hell's going on here? He's got tattoos all over his back.
Let me show you pain.
Yeah. It's very
Hellraiser at some point.
I learned from other people that like visited Japan and they had like tattoos, and I guess they have like Japan's famous for having bathhouses, and I guess they have separate bathhouses for people with tattoos.
Oh, okay. Hepatitis or what?
No, it's Yakuza stuff.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
So, because immediately if you have a tattoo, you're assumed to be in the criminal enterprises and stuff. So they try to keep that low key. So you got to go to a separate bathhouse. So then he goes up to the hanging Suzuki and he like stabs him in the cheek with his big needle. Like in different.
This guy's very dangerous knitting needles.
Yeah. Or this is like, yeah, this is piercing needle set or whatever. But no, they're not different sizes. They're all just giant needles. Yeah, like you said, look like knitting needles. He does one through the cheek where it's like, well, that seems fine. But then he does one like through the base of his chin, and it's like, that looks like that hurts.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that's going through your lower palate and
um, and then he's like, well, that's bad. But then he starts pouring the boiling oil on his back and face and stuff like that. It's like, well, this is horrific. so, um, so yeah, now it's not fun anymore. Now it's not just weird and violent and quasi sexual. Now it's just no, we're just like hurting people the worst way possible. So, and I think this came out before what was that movie? The Cell. Remember they go into like the serial killer's mind, and he had some suspension stuff, but it also has like weird stuff in his mind of just weird violent imagery.
I'm trying to remember when that came out. Let me look it up.
I'm gonna guess 2002, but I don't know.
Let me see here. So I think I've seen that movie once.
Oh, 2000. Okay, so it came out before that. Okay. And then Funaki shows up, wondering what the hell's going on here, which I don't really know who Funaki is. I think he's just like the second in line to the boss. And he's also like seems sickly and weird.
Yeah, he's got this thing where he's always flipping over this hourglass.
Yeah.
He can't walk in a straight line. He just falls over a lot.
Yeah, so he's wondering what the hell is going on, and he stops the torture. And also, like, Gigi is there the whole time, but when Kakahara goes to point him out, like, yeah, this guy said he did it, and then when they go to point him out, he's gone. So it's like, well, that's a mystery. So that's the end of Act 1. So they need to find the boss. Ichi's a killer. Kakahara's a weird torturist. Sadomasochist. So I have Act 2. We got Ichi goes to a companion club, which I think that's what this is, where he meets the girl that got beat up and was raped in the beginning, and Ichi's like questioning her about being beaten and raped, and then she wishes the guy that beat her up would be dead, and so Ichi asks if he can kill them, and then when she says yes, he's like remembering her getting beaten up, and then he pushes her head down for a blowjob. It's like, all right, who is this guy?
Is this the darkest Dark Knight? That's like, I will avenge you, but I'll also degrade you at the same time.
Yeah. You think, yeah. You're still like, because everybody else is so bad. It's like, maybe he's the good guy? Even though the movie's called Ichi the Killer, so probably not. That's the thing with this movie. There isn't really a good guy, but
yeah, no, there's no one to really identify with. There's people to laugh along with, but nobody like, yeah, I'd like to be this guy's friend.
But I mean, there's not necessarily like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of like collateral damages in this movie. It's all criminals that are getting hurt, so that's the best you can do for this movie. So, then we get to Kakahara meets with some other Yakuza bosses over his torture stunt, and so he cuts off a part of his tongue for penance, which weirds everyone out.
Yeah.
Because he makes a big deal out of it. He's just like bleeding all over the place. And he gets a call from Karen, which he just like comically answers, and like blood's just spilling out of his mouth as he talks. And he can't, he's like, oh. So it's like, can anybody understand him? So he just leaves like, oh, this is no big deal. Like, but everyone else is horrified by this. Then we cut to Kakahara has like his tongue sewed up, so now it's like, it's all good. He can talk again. He says something about like the human body can like regrow. It's like, well, that's not how that works, but whatever. So.
Yeah, you got starfish.
But yeah, now his tongue is sewed up. He can basically just talk good again. But even though like Karen points out like she can't hear him at this moment, but after this moment, like everybody can hear him so he's not talking weird for the whole movie. Well, at least for all I know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Karen takes him up to some room. It's like some drug dealer who like he breaks her fingers. Like he puts his hands up to hers, so like all the fingers like match up, and then he just like presses them so they bend backwards, and he just breaks all her fingers in her hand. It's like, but it just happens out of nowhere. It's like, wait, did that just happen? He does it with one finger, and then he just like collapses all the other ones. Like, and then he presumes she talks. So then we just cut away from that.
Yeah, because after that she starts. Okay.
um. Then we have Kakara's like interrogates another like disgraced yakuza. This is the guy that they have like shoved in a TV. This is like the drug addict who had the birthday at the club.
Yeah.
But they find the boss's money with like the boss's blood on it, which they know it's the boss's blood because Kakahara licks it and says, "Yeah, it tastes like the boss."
Yeah.
So here's where this guy just says that Ichi killed the boss. Well, all he wants is a hit of drugs, so he'll just tell them anything if he can get some more drugs. There's also he reveals that Kakahara loved the boss because the pain the boss inflicted on him. So it's not necessarily a sexual thing. It's a sadomasochism thing. It's like he gave the best pain. So yeah, I don't know if like the scars on his face are from the boss or if that's self-inflicted, but he likes to receive pain from others, but he also likes to give pain. So
yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. He's excited in both directions.
Yeah. Then he pulls a needle out, and then we cut to there's a tug in a jar, which this is Kakahara, and this is Suzuki like in a hospital like recovering, and he's covered in bandages. And here Suzuki swears revenge, and then some guys in a mask show up with a machete to Suzuki, put it to his like face, which I call these guys the Jiro brothers because that's the only name they've mentioned often. I think these are like the bad cops.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like corrupt cops, but it's never clear.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, oh, we got to call this guy.
Yeah.
Call these guys, and it's like then these weirdos show
up. But yeah, these guys are looking for the girl that the boss was with, so I guess that makes somewhat sense because they eventually find her. So I guess that makes more sense now. Because at first I thought these were like the cleanup guys, but no, these are the introduction.
Yeah, that's what I thought at first too. Is like, oh, they're doing something else, but it's like no.
But I saw these like weird masks that are actually doing their job of concealing their face because they stand out a little bit and they're like kind of clear, so you can't pick out any forms of their face. But like they're about to kill him when Suzuki gets a call, and so they answer the call, and like they're told that like they're looking for Kakahara. I think that's what goes on here. But then we cut back to like the girl from the beginning is getting beat up again. Which is this girl's name? Sailor? Is that when Ichi's talking about a sailor? Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that was her name. I thought he was literally talking about like someone who was a sailor, but I'm guessing that I think I only picked that up later on that her name was Sailor, which that's a weird name for. Well, I guess Sailor Moon. So maybe that's probably what she's probably going for. So
yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I know that's a cartoon over there.
Yeah,
I haven't really watched
it. It's meant just for you, Dan.
just the kind of stuff I like. Yeah, I was gonna watch it on the computer and be like, hey, you can watch this hardcore pornography. Yeah, that's true.
Sailor's getting beat up again, but I guess this guy's supposed to be her pimp, which he's a really bad pimp. If all he does is beating up the lady that he gets money from.
Yeah.
Ichi shows up on the balcony in a suit with the big yellow one on it. He watches her being raped again. Then like that guy sees Ichi and he goes and opens up the door. Oh no, Ichi opens up the door and the guy sees him and he gets angry and then he just punches Ichi and kind of like tosses him inside. And like Ichi's like cowering at this point. He's bullying Ichi and wants to know what the hell he's doing here, which is like, that's a good question. What the hell are you doing here? Yeah. Ichi's crying, but he's like denying it. And then a blade pops out of the back of his heel and he does like this big axe kick, like puts his leg like basically all up to the ceiling and slashes all the way down. And he like kicks the guy and splits in two, which they do with like CGI here, so it's very comical and like unreal, but it's fine. So, I got so much money to go around. So, and then he starts. So that guy's dead, and then he starts. and he grabs his boner at the side of the dead body, which then sailors ask him like, "What is he doing?" She's completely so she's really confused. She's about to be even more confused. Ichi says he killed him for he killed the guy for you, which he thinks, which you can see like, okay, well that's not good, but at least he seems to stop a guy from committing violence on her. But then he's like, "Don't worry, I'll beat you up instead." Then she's like, "Wait, what?" So Ichi's not a good person, and
Yeah.
and she's like, "Oh great, now I'm just gonna can be continually raped and beat up by people." Like, and so she grabs a bat, swings at him, and then like, as a reaction, Ichi just like kicks her in the throat, and then she just comically sprays like 40 feet of blood all over the place and takes like 2 minutes to die. So, um, and then Ichi cries some more. so, so now we know what Ichi is. It's like, okay, nobody's redeemable in this movie.
Yeah.
Then we cut to the guy who's like stuffed in the TV. He's just like on the street with the trash with like needles stuck in all over his face, and he's dead. So, um, and everyone's just walking by like nothing happened. So, and then we have like, we have the weird boss is like on a video call, and he like is trying to kick Kakahara out of the syndicate. And then Kakahara reaches in his pocket, which everyone reacts to, and he just like leaves this pin, which I guess means that he's a part of the syndicate or something like that. And then he thanks them and leaves.
It's high tech, yeah.
Which is very funny. He's like, "Oh, is that all you wanted?" And then he just leaves like nothing happened. Then, then he walks back in, which everyone like flinches at again. He says like, "Oh, I'm gonna take over Anjo's gang," and he leaves because that's like his boss is Anjo. That's the boss that's dead now. So then we cut to Kakar like gathers up the gang, and he asks if anyone wants to leave the gang. They can do so right now, which makes it sound like it's a they can. But then when one guy says like, "All right, I'll give you my mug or something, that I swore my allegiance to or something like that back," and then Kakar just like stabs him in the foot like onto a piece of wood with one of his spikes, and then like doesn't let the guy leave the gang. And so for like when they're doing like the big like we're walking down the street as a gang, he still has like the piece of wood like stuck to his foot, and he's limping, and then the wood just kind of falls off, and he just keeps going. Let's see here. Then we cut to Gigi and crew get a call from they get a call from Suzuki to kill Kakahara. Yeah, that's what's going on here. Then we cut to Gigi goes to Ichi's room and sees the bloody shoes. He's playing fighting games. Gigi turns off the game console, and then that kind of undoes the channel thing, and it reveals a news report about the people he just killed. And then Ichi tells of his dream of a girl being raped and calling for help. And Gigi thinks that in the dream, Ichi wanted to save her, but Ichi says he wanted to rape her, which that confuses Gigi, which really shouldn't, because he's the one later on you figure out is feeding him the lies that are making him really confused. Because that's the weird thing here is we don't know, is Ichi this confused because he's just a psychopath, or is it because of all this brainwashing this guy did? And that's up to you to decide.
Yeah, that's never really fleshed out.
It's is Ichi redeemable, or is he just needs to be in a psych ward, or just killed? And then Ichi cowers under the blanket, and then that's where he's being absent-minded. He's talking about a sailor, but then that's where now I realize he meant that's talking about that girl they just killed.
Yeah.
So, which that's the weird dichotomy with Ichi too, is how he's able to kill people, but then he has a problem with it. But it's also gives him sexual pleasure, and also he's a coward every other time.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a lot of superhero connotations to what they set up here. He's got a superhero outfit. He's got a bullied past, which again is kind of a superhero backstory, but that's not what's happening here. He's not a superhero.
No.
So.
Yeah, it's like I said, the darkest dark night you'll ever see.
Then we get to Kakar shows up at some club looking for trouble. He's like pinching this guy's cheek, which you thought he never rips this guy's like cheek off, but he gets very it looks very like something from Hellraiser.
Yeah, it's very David Cronenberg almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then Karen shows up and joins in, is like stretching his other cheek because she knows how to like try to get in close with people. It's like, oh, that's what. So she wants to be Kakaro's girl and like helps torture people. And she also seems to be getting off by this, but you don't know if that's just a play or if it's really her thing. She also a sadomasochist, or is she just an opportunist? I don't know.
an opportunistic masochist.
Then we cut to Ichi's in an alleyway at night, and he watches a kid getting bullied, which like the kids get close to him, and Ichi just kind of like looks away. And then one of the bullies like kicks Ichi's bikes, but then he just like kicks this kid out of instinct, and the kid starts crying.
Yeah, he kicks him hard too. It flies through the air. Hold on a second, my light's doing something.
It's going purple.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I think it might be on a slow blend or something like that.
Is that what it's doing? Come on, you damn thing. I think my remote control quit working. Well, that's enough of that.
We got two of them, right? So you got two controllers.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just don't have the other. I don't know where the other one is. I think it's downstairs.
Let's see here. So yeah, Ichi kicks that kid, and the next scene we got Karen is punching Kakar in the face with like, well, he's like wrapped in chains, and then she gets tired of punching him, which she gathers up for one more punch, and then Kakahara leaves disappointed in this pain session. So it's like, no, you're not going to give me what I want. So. Then we cut to like security camera footage of like gangsters, and then Ichi's like on the phone being told to kill them because they're bullies. Because that's the whole like kind of that's his whole trigger.
Yeah.
If you convince him that someone's a bully, he'll kill them. And then Ichi shows up in his kill suit and runs up to the door and like axe kicks the lock open and then gets in the door, and then you don't see him kill the people inside the room. You just see like guts and pieces flying out of the room, and even like a front of a face hits the wall and slides down the wall.
Yeah, it's really weird.
It's like, Ichi's a badass. He can kill a room full of gangsters, but he's a crying mess every other time of the way. So.
It's very, very focused. He's good at like one thing at one specific time.
Yeah. You have to get him in the right window. He's like a tire in F1. Ichi leaves and throws up and says he doesn't want to kill anymore. So it's now you're left to wonder. It's like, okay, what about this killing is now wrong, or why is it not satisfying to him anymore? You're not sure why. But I guess it's just because there's a mismatch in his like hypnotism or something like that, so he doesn't feel right because things are like conflicting in his mind or something. I don't know. It's up for you to decide. Does this movie go that deep, or is it just a terrible like a look at terrible people doing terrible things for terrible reasons?
Yeah, I never thought there was a lot of subtext in this. It seemed to be like the stuff that was going on was so on the nose. It's like, oh, okay.
He sees the bully kid at the apartment complex, and the kid tries to thank him, which Ichi tells him his name and then runs off. Then we got to Kakar shows up at the room where all like I guess is like his gang. So I guess like most of his gang just got killed by Ichi here. Everyone's grossed out by the sight, but Kakahara is kind of impressed and intrigued by it. So this is really like the start of like Kakahara wants to find Ichi because he thinks he can deliver the right pain to him.
Right.
Because like Kakahara doesn't want to die. He just wants to feel the most pain, the closest to death without going over.
Right.
He's kind of the Wheel of Fortune, or not Wheel of Fortune, that spin the wheel of pain from Price is Right. That's what he's going on here. um, and then we have a gangster, Kaneko. This is like he's just burning bodies on the roof while the bully kid, which is his son Takahashi, he's like kicking some plant, thinking he'll be able to stand up for himself. Like, now I'm training with karate. Um, which I don't, we get sort of his backstory later on, where I guess he was a cop and he lost his gun, which I don't know if his gun was used to kill anybody, but he got kicked off the force because he lost his gun, and then the only place he had left to go was to join the Yakuza. So.
Which is weird because in Japan, all their guns are on lanyards.
Yeah.
Because their patrol police carry like 38 pistols, but they're basically like 38 Smith and Wessons,
Yeah.
but they're all on lanyards.
Huh.
So it's like, how'd you lose that? Lanyard.
Talent.
But I don't know. Yeah. His story was.
So yeah, then we cut to like this guy, Kaneko, finds Ichi like being beaten up outside. I wrote a restaurant, but I guess this is the companion club, which I guess he owes them a bunch of money. And here Kaneko has a flashback where he basically kind of has like a similar thing where he's getting beaten up for money, and then it's Takayama, I think, that comes up, like the big heavy kind of Yakuza guy. He comes up and asks how much does he owe you, which this guy thinks that he's gonna get the money from him, but then he finds out he's Yakuza and he oh, never mind.
He just walks because he's like you better mind your own business or whatever. Who are you with? And he says, and the guy just like walks away.
So yeah, this is like cutting between like 3 different scenes. This is like 2 flashbacks and the present all at once. So this is getting kind of weird. Again, I don't know if this is intentional or if like we ran out of film. We just threw it together here. Yeah, that's where he learned that he was a cop who lost his gun. He thinks that Ichi's from China and doesn't belong here. So that's where you get kind of a look into like, oh, the Yakuza is also xenophobic. But you were saying something different. Like apparently it's an organization you can just join. It's not necessarily like xenophobic like this here. But
well, I mean, you have to be Japanese.
Oh, you have to be Japanese. Okay.
And then yeah, it seems like it's open. Like it's not like the mob where it's like the Italian mafia where it's like a lot of these guys were like related.
Yeah.
At least they were Italian. Seems like the Yakuza is a little, well, at this point in their history, like right now.
Okay.
They just had something about how like, yeah, the Yakuza is like looking for a few good men. The average age is 54.
Well, that's like the one of the conflicts in Dead or Alive is that this Yakuza guy is starting a war with other Yakuza because he's not working his way up because he's like, he has Chinese heritage, and so he's just you know, they use that against him and won't like promote him. So he's like, well, I guess I'll just kill all of you. And then the Yakuza get like they have a cop that they have because they gave him money so he could get an operation for his child. And so he's basically like a good cop, but now he owns the Yakuza. So now he's like in a rock and a hard place. And so he's investigating this Chinese Yakuza guy.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. Yeah, when we cut to Gigi and Ichi are sleeping on a windowsill, which this is just weird.
Yeah, it just seemed strange. It's like I was sleeping on a windowsill. Okay.
And then Gigi lays out envelopes with numbers on it. He says the pictures are of the bullies who bullied him, or actually says no, they're worse than those bullies. And then Gigi keeps manipulating Ichi, and Ichi says he doesn't want to kill anymore. Then Gigi gives Ichi tranquilizer, but then he just like runs off and doesn't take him. But this is either a mistake or they just found something interesting, because we see like the tranquilizer getting thrown from the background to the foreground, and then Ichi leaves, and then it's like, well, that's Gigi throwing the things, and then Gigi walks in the door. It's like, what does that mean? Who's behind the camera? Is this 2 different times? What's going on here? Yeah, I don't know. They probably just found that editing and thought like it seemed more interesting than whatever straight up editing they were doing. Like, this creates intrigue rather than, again, that's like Verhoeven Effect stuff where it's like, is this a mistake or is this intentional? It's like, that's up for you to decide. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends. It almost seemed like a weird scene randomly thrown in the movie, though.
Yeah.
It's like this doesn't really vibe with anything else that was going on.
Well, this is the more like explicit showing Gigi manipulating Ichi.
Yeah,
And so like when you see them both like sleeping in the windowsill, like when you kind of think about it afterwards, it's like, oh, Ichi's not necessarily sleeping. Well, Gigi's not sleeping. He's like hypnotizing Ichi, and that's why Ichi's sleeping, and then Gigi's just there manipulating him. Again, like this isn't necessarily explicit. You just have to kind of like piece that together afterwards. Um, which really, it's only stuff with Karen later on where it's like kind of more revealed because they specifically talk about hypnotism, and that's like your only clue is like, oh, that's what's going on here.
yeah,
Then we cut to Kakar is now looking for Ichi. The Jiro brothers are hanging around. They like tease Kaneko. They said like, "Hey, who can lose a gun?" Which I guess these guys are still cops. They're just dirty cops. So
really dirty cop, filthiest of cops.
they got like these blue coats that just have like a million holes in it. I don't
Yeah,
know what that's about.
goes back to our hobo cop days.
um. The one guy who's supposed to stay there gets bored and calls some. Oh wait, no. We cut to. This is one of Jiro's guys, one of the cleanup guys. He gets bored because Jiro told him to stay, or Gigi told him to stay put, and he doesn't want to leave. And then he calls some lady, which I'm guessing this is the boss's lady, which she has. I
Yeah,
can't remember her name. It starts with an O, I think. So he calls her, and then he goes after her. He's like running across the rooftops to get out of there, which I don't know if he just doesn't want to be seen leaving through the downstairs or something like that. Then we cut to Gigi's playing a game with Karen, and then she's curious about Ichi and why he can't ejaculate. This is where we learn that like Ichi has selective amnesia because his whole backstory about like he watched this girl get raped is like that's something that Gigi put in his head, and like really what happened is like he killed his parents and he can't remember it. So because of,
yeah, this is like a substitute memory
yeah,
of, so you throw like a sexual thing in there, and it triggers him. It's very oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's like a Manchurian
yeah,
candidate
yeah.
almost. Yeah, he's like manipulated that way.
So like this is the thing where it's like, is all this sexual stuff just completely a falsehood, and that's why Ichi doesn't understand it, or is it a part of his pathology or whatever? You don't know. So,
Yeah, you're gonna have. I'm going to assume it is, but
yeah,
it's like, but it was artificially created
yeah, um,
because he seems to associate like this weird association with sex and violence.
yeah, um, yeah, and like he really hates bullies.
Yeah, he really hates bullies.
Which again, you don't know. Like, was he ever actually bullied? Did he
We
kill?
don't know why he murdered his
Yeah,
parents,
maybe he
but
was
yeah,
bullied by his parents, or maybe he just like thought to kill them one day. You don't know how he killed them either. Because you imagine he didn't have his razor boots then, so like,
yeah. I looked that up in Japan. It's like, how do they feel about edged weapons? It's all illegal,
oh, okay,
but everything's illegal there.
yeah. That's why you gotta make homemade shotguns to shoot officials.
So you can murder the old prime minister with like, that's the only the Japanese would have an assassination like that, where you have to make your own weapons. Have a battery system with a trigger, and it's like you got to do your own soldering and stuff. And then the reasons for the murder were understandable, but still abstract.
Yeah,
It's like, was this a political thing? Kind of. It's like, oh, why? It's like, well, Shinzo Abe was too close with the Moonies, and my mom gave all her money away to the Moonies, so I didn't have anything. So I'm just going to shoot him with a firework that I
yeah,
converted into some kind of massive shotgun. And it's going to work.
yeah.
And it's like horrible. It's like, oh, our former prime minister was assassinated. Should we have a state funeral? No, we hate him. We're glad he's dead. Like, that was the Japanese public's response. It's like, what this guy did obviously kind of broke the the peaceful reputation of our society, but we really didn't like Abe very much. So no funeral for him. And then they went ahead and had a state funeral, but people did, they did things like turn their backs and stuff. And it's like, wow, this is dark.
Wasn't there weird stuff where like they asked the guys like, "Do you think what you did was wrong?" He's like, "Yeah."
Oh no, he admitted it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I murdered someone, like, but I didn't have a future, so
yeah,
he was very calm about it.
yeah.
Everyone was kind of like, "It
He
this
seemed,
you're
yeah, he
clever."
seemed happy he didn't kill anybody else. It's like, oh, I did a good thing here.
Yeah. I accomplished the mission. I stated my goals and I accomplished the mission and I followed through
But
and
also,
yeah,
I did murder a person. That is wrong.
I did publicly execute somebody essentially or publicly murder somebody, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Politics in Japan, interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
And then while this is being explained to Karen, she asks if she's under hypnosis too, and Gigi says no, which again, it's like, wait, that's a lie. Then we cut to the Jiro brothers. They grab some woman and like rape her in a car, which I guessing this was the boss's lady that was last to know who to be with the boss.
Yeah.
Then we cut to now Kakahara is torturing the lady and like cuts her nipples off. This is a very upsetting scene. It's like,
It's a weird scene because there's like clips on them,
yeah,
which is like, and you see this woman's nipples and her full breasts, and there's clips on them and they're being pulled, and all of a sudden here comes a scalpel, and then everything just snaps back, and it's like, wow, did they just film that? Okay.
I mean, they kind of like they show like the razor and the blood, and you see it kind of lying across in the blood, and then after that's all implied, but it's like,
Yeah, I don't like show it.
yeah,
But then I saw that, and then it was like fettuccine Alfredo.
your family.
Your family. I just want someone to get their nipples cut off. Do I want the chicken on that or not? Unlimited bread, just what I need.
And then we Kaneko talks outside the room, trying to convince himself that like this is all for revenge for the boss, so it's the right thing.
Yeah.
Then one of the brothers like puts on dog ears and like smells the woman's crotch, and he says, "I got a clue now." And then they just head off.
It's just the weirdest scene.
And she's also like missing an ear now. Like this is like it's like everything that happens to this woman is like undeserved and sad. So.
Yeah, it's a horrible scene of sadism and then just weird behavior about people who are ostensibly sober, and like it's just like, no, this is what they do.
Yeah.
Like they're not on some wild bender like the cleanup crew was. So I'll tell you anything, just give me another hit. I know you're going to kill me, but give me another hit. These guys are not like this is just these guys are cops.
Yeah. Then Kaneko is told to stay behind. Are these cops? Are these the brothers of the boss? Because remember, he says something when the one guy gets killed. He says, "I know my brother got killed because I had the same feeling when my other brother got killed," and I think they're referring to the boss.
Oh, I thought they were just talking about another brother because they're supposed to be twins.
Yeah.
But I thought they were talking about another brother they had. I didn't know if it was the boss or not.
Okay.
That's something that might have been lost in translation.
Yeah. Well, they also refer to Kakahara as a brother, as a big brother, but I think that's just like a joke or something. I'm not sure there. I don't think.
I mean, they could be because these guys, the cops, are bought and sold by the Yakuza,
Yeah.
so that term could be like interchangeable in a lot of different ways that we don't get.
Yeah, there was definitely some like mistranslation stuff.
Yeah,
because I know every time like there was a bunch of times where like the character will say like do this now, and he'll say do this new. And I'm like, well, that's wrong.
do this new. What, in a new way? Do it new. Nobody says that anymore. Unless they're talking about, no, just do new dance.
So yeah, the police brothers and Kakahara leave, which Kaneko is like trying to follow after him, and they're like, "Hey, I didn't tell you to come with me." So,
yeah, it's almost sad.
Yeah.
Like because he does say like, read the room.
Yeah.
You're not. This isn't for you. I'm following a guy just became a furry. And he's gonna chase somebody down by the smell of a woman's crotch. It's like that's really weird.
So you could...
How did they film that? By the way, that was the most embarrassing things for the your head in her crotch and sniff like a dog. It's like
again, these might be like the. Because I remember like one interesting thing about the Dead or Alive movie is that there's supposed to be these merging of universes. Like I think the guy who plays the cop was like a theatrical actor, and the guy who plays the Yakuza guy was kind of like known as like a B movie actor, and it was kind of like this not only clash of cops and Yakuza in the movie, but it was a clash of like theatrical release people or whatever.
That could be,
So I
yeah.
think they're just like there's different pools of different levels of actors. So
Yeah, there's like stage actors
yeah,
and there's process actors and then there's this regular old ham and egg character
yeah.
actor.
So yeah, these might be a lot of B movie actors in this movie, but again, I'm not sure because there's only one guy I vaguely know of. So uh,
Well, I know I've seen enough movies like when Japanese people decide to act weird, they go full
yeah.
weird. I mean, they like embrace it heart and soul. So
Um. So yeah, Kaneko goes back into the room and he has to like he's like trying to he sees the torture lady who's still alive and he feels bad for her. He's like, do you want some water? And she keeps saying like Longy, no Longy. And then he gets mad that she doesn't want water, and then he just like beats her up. It's like, oh Jesus Christ! Even like,
but not in like a sex like punch and slap way. Like no, he's like kicking her.
yeah.
Like you're gonna kill her.
Which I'm not, because she's just dead later on. So did this blast beating up kill her?
Yeah,
Presumably.
you kick someone with like, if you're physically fit and you have a like a hard shoe
Yeah.
and someone's already bleeding and had their nipples cut off, it's like, yeah, go ahead and kick them in the stomach, like full on,
Yeah.
like jump kick them. Yeah, you're gonna rupture their organs. They're gonna die.
Um. Then we cut to Longy, which is, I guess I picked this name up later on because she was saying it. That this is one of the cleanup crew guys. He's in his room trying to call Gigi, who doesn't pick up. And then one of the Jiro brothers show up, like making weird noises, and they kind of see his silhouette in the window. And then he opens the window, the guy's there, and then he starts running. It's a very weird scene.
Yeah, it's
And then
strange.
Longy like kind of like just like barrels through like a ceiling in the room, and then gets down. They're still chasing him. And he jumps through a door that's just like has no stairwell underneath, and he kind of like jams his knee up, and he gets away from them, and then he just like runs into Kakahara, who's just watering plants randomly.
Yeah, just yeah, these plants they look dry. Let's water them.
And then he punches Kakahara a bunch of times in the face, who like Kakahara seems disappointed. Is like, no, come on, like you're really doing it. And here's where Kakahara takes out his lip rings, which presumably is holding his mouth together. So now he has like when Longy punches him one more time, his mouth opens up big and just like swallows his fist. And then Longy pulls down and it kind of just strips all the skin off his fingers and stuff like that. It's it's just a puppet here, but it's like it makes him extra weird. So,
Yeah, he's just this guy's strange in a very unusual way.
yeah.
His wounds on his face that never heal. And also, he just had his tongue off not too long
Yeah.
ago. So it's like, huh,
Yeah.
he just doesn't feel pain at
Yeah.
all.
Oh no, he feels pain. He just needs more of it. He's been
Yeah.
numb to all the pain he's received. And then we kind of have like we cut to Gigi watching from the roof, which I don't know if that's real or not, or do they just cut it in there? Because he's kind of like half smiling. Because I guess it's like, well, I guess he doesn't care about that guy.
Well, yeah, he's just a manipulator.
Yeah.
So everyone serves a purpose for him.
Then we cut to Karen's like waiting for Ichi, and then just like runs into him with her car. And he just gets up and walks away. It's like sorry, that's my fault. And then she introduces herself as Tachibana, which that's the girl in his dreams. Um, and they go to his house, and then she's trying to manipulate Ichi, and then she's like talking about how she likes to be abused, and then she talks about like fantasizing about being chopped up piece by piece, which just completely feeds into Ichi's fantasy. He's like, I can do that for you. He's like really happy. He's like, finally someone who understands me.
You get me.
um, and then she starts filling him up and taking his pants off and giving him a blowjob. And he's kind of like, hold on. And he grabs his like blade shoe. And then and he wants to cut. He says like, I'm gonna cut you up like you want. And then she immediately gets scared and she's like, hey, I'm not Tachibana. And he's like, no, I'm like save for it. And then he just like happily like cuts her leg off. And then she's like hopping away. And then like while she's hopping away, she has this flashback, which I'm guessing this is like a reveal that like she actually is Tachibana, and like she was hypnotized by Gigi, and for reasons no idea, I have no idea, but that's
Gigi's been running a deep
yeah.
game. if this is indeed the
Yeah.
case.
Again, this is up to you to decide because like I have no idea what this means.
I'm assuming it was just blood loss, and she realized, oh, I screwed up by pretending to be this person,
Yeah.
or his he is so evil that like it's just like projected into her. I'm not. You have no idea.
Well, it
So.
seems she seems to have a surprise revelation. It's like, oh no, because she's like saying like I'm not Tachibana, I'm not Tachibana, and it seems to be a revelation. Is like, oh wait, I'm man, I am. Which, again, I don't know if that scene actually happened or also he fed her that same imagery of the girl being raped. So like, so so did that rape happen or not? No idea. So
Yeah, well, as this movie ends, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but this is the more dream logic comes into this movie.
yeah,
Where there's like whole sections like I mean, obviously really crazy stuff happened,
yeah,
but it's like some of these scenes is like, did that happen?
yeah. Which that's
Uh,
kind of like something Miike does a lot, where a lot of his third acts are like up to you as to what happened. Is like, did that happen or not? Which again,
yeah, all the crazy horror and torture you've seen so far did happen.
yeah,
However, now there's so much horror, maybe reality is starting to fall
yeah.
apart.
And then Ichi cuts her throat, and then oh yeah, that's where she has the flashback when her throat gets cut, and then she starts also comically bleeding like 40 feet in the air and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
um, which again, she's not a great person, but she didn't deserve this,
yeah,
and she hadn't. And I don't know why she had. I don't know why she had no concern that if she fed into his fantasy, this wouldn't happen. She like explicitly was telling things he wanted to hear, and then he just acted it out. So that being the end Act 2, we got Act 3. Kakar is torturing Longy with needles to the face. He wants to know where Ichi is. He gets a call from Gigi, who Gigi says he's like controlling everything. Where this is now where like Gigi is kind of like, he's just this crazy old guy in the beginning, but now he has like this kind of like deep, almost like Batman in disguise voice, where it's like gruff and low. And then Kakar gets scissors out and threatens to cut Longy's dick off, which he's like, I'll tell you anything. um, and then Gigi gets a call from Ichi, who now wants to work. So now he agrees, like, yeah, I'll go kill some more Yakuza guys. Takayama goes out for a smoke. This is like one of the big, heavy, like, henchmen for Kakahara. He sees Gigi and then, like, chases after him, which Gigi's, like, almost kind of, like, scared. But then he catches Gigi, who then like disarms Takayama, and then like he's got like this big like raincoat on the whole movie, and now he takes it off, and now he's just like a big muscle man.
yeah, like it looks like Schwarzenegger or something.
With his head like comically comped onto the body, but
Yeah,
they only got so much money to do this stuff, so
right, yeah, no,
and then he just like. Yeah, he's the big muscly bodybuilder. And he just break Takayama's neck, which he has a big neck, so that probably took some effort. We cut back to the room, and there's a knock at the door, and then Kaneko goes outside and finds Takayama's broken body, like all his bones have been smashed, and then the Jiro, and then so like Kakahara and one of the Jiro brothers run off, and then the actual Jiro brother. It's like looks at the body and is like, it's crazy. Can you rip somebody's arm off? And then so he tries to rip Longy's arm off, which he'll be successful eventually.
yeah,
we cut to Ichi's looking over the photos of the people he's supposed to kill. It's all Kakahara's gang. It's the Jiro brothers. And then Gigi gets told a lie that Kaneko is his older brother, which it's like, is that going to protect Kaneko or not? Which I guess it doesn't. We cut back to Jiro actually rips off Longy's arm, and then I think he like dies pretty shortly, or he's just dead in the next scene. And then Ichi shows up in the doorway. Then we cut to Kakar is like overflowing with excitement with like the chance to be killed by Ichi. It's like, oh, I'm tingling as they're like searching around for him. Like he's here somewhere. And this is where the other brother gets the sense that his brother died, and he says it's like the time his other older brother died. So I'm thinking maybe that was the boss or maybe someone else. I can't think of who their other brother was, but or was it the drug addict guy? Do you think maybe he was their brother? I'm not sure.
That could be.
So I'm trying to think of like kind of like people that died, like how they're integral to the plot. That's Oh, anyways, they go back to the room where Jiro is. He's dead. He has his head caved in, which I think just Ichi punched him because he seems to have like some kind of like metal thing over his fist here, which I don't think we've seen that before. Because he seems to just kill everybody with just the heel blade, and I think he only has one. I think that's mostly what he has. Then Ichi emerges from the shadows. Also, cum flies as he slices the other brother's head off. um, and then we cut to Kaneko's running around outside. He meets up with his son, who talks about Ichi. He's like, "Wait, that guy I helped out was Ichi." Um, and then we see Kakara's being chased on the roof by Ichi. Well, here it's kind of like this weird slow motion stuff. It's almost like the film is like blasted out. It's very bright here. Also, like Kakara's like this weird costume that like it's like it flows between green and purple.
Yeah,
He's got
it's very interesting.
um,
It's like that color changing
yeah.
cloth or something.
I heard some like I found something on Reddit where a guy was talking about the color purple and how there isn't actually a color purple. It's just our interpretation of not green.
Interesting. I always like to hear that stuff about color. I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes me think like, oh, there's still some magic left in the world.
Kaneko shows up on the roof and pulls a gun on Ichi. Kakahara gets confused by like a pause in the fight. Also, Kakahara pulls out his like needles. It's like, I'm gonna fight you, and he blocks his leg. Is like he does a kick, and then and now Ichi gets confused, thinking Kaneko is his older brother, and he's like, what does he say? Like, why'd you leave me, or what's he claiming his older brother did? I can't remember here. Anyways, Ichi like kind of comes after, like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Which freaks Kaneko out, and he shoots Ichi in the leg. And of course, Ichi reacts by cutting his throat, so it's another throat death. But here it's like an extra long one because they have his son Takeshi just watches his dad die for like 2 minutes.
And his dad like calls him towards him while he's bleeding to death. Come here. Let's have a weird
hug. Ichi apologized to Takeshi and then cries. And he just like falls over and is crying. He's also bleeding from the leg because he took like 3 bullets to the leg. Kakahara gets disappointed by all the crying and the bleeding mess that Ichi is. He's like, "You're the greatest pervert of all." It's like, what? So now he's disappointed.
I did like what it translated as the greatest pervert. King of perverts.
And then Kakahara helps Ichi up, but then he just falls over and keeps crying. Then Kakahara gives up on Ichi, and Takeshi goes over and starts kicking Ichi, which like a child beating up Ichi completely deflates Kakahara. It's like, well, this isn't what I wanted. So then he shoves the needles in his ears until he can no longer hear and everything goes silent.
Which is a good idea.
And then he opens his eyes to Ichi standing up, having beheaded Takeshi, the kid. And then Ichi like hobble runs over to Kakahara and he like stabs him in the head and like leaves like a cross wound. But it doesn't embed completely in his head, just kind of makes a surface wound. And then Kakahara is able to like pushes himself away with that. He makes like a leap and a backflip, and he like lands on some railing. He's like, whoa, whoa, and then eventually just falls off the railing. And he's kind of like screaming with glee. He's like, yippee, this is great. I'm gonna die.
He's excited.
And then he dies. And then then Gigi walks up to Kakahara's body and he's like laughing. But then he like parts Kakahara's hair and we see that he doesn't have the head wound. So it's like, oh wait, did that just not happen? Which I read the Wikipedia and it said, no, that didn't happen. That was all a dream he had after he stabbed his ear and then he just leapt to his death. Because also there's other thing that explains, which I didn't make sense later on. But yeah, Gigi goes through like a series of emotions and then he just kind of like looks up and then Gigi walks away. And then there's just like a montage of shots of stuff. And then we cut to Gigi's just hanging from a tree. That's revealed, and then just a group of kids, schoolboys, walk by him, And then like kind of this like we see a character and they look back at the camera, which at first I thought that was Ichi. It's like, well, it's not Ichi. And the movie ends. I'm like, what was that? Which Wikipedia explains of when we cut to that scene, it's been a few years later, and then presumably Takeshi is still alive because that whole sequence when after Kakar like puts the needles in his ear never happened, and so Takeshi got revenge on Gigi by hanging him in public or something like that. And so like that person looking back at the end is supposed to be like an older Takeshi, which I never picked up on until I read the Wikipedia. So
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was that actor, like it just different. But why all the school kids were there and they were just walking past someone hanging in a
yeah, they
tree
didn't
and
care.
no,
They didn't recognize it.
like, it's an old muscle guy in a tree dead. Interesting.
Yeah, which yeah, and also like I think hanging from trees in Japan has like way deeper meaning than what we pick up on because there's like a forest of people that where people hang themselves and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's the home of the suicide
Yeah.
forest, where I guess you can't go as an American with and make YouTube videos and laugh about it because people get angry.
Um,
I forget who did that, but
yeah,
yeah,
it
I
was
remember.
Logan Paul. So
Yeah, somebody went and like I don't know what happened, but it's like, yeah, just don't go there. How about not going there?
I mean, I don't think they show any dead bodies, but they weren't like treating it with like reverence or like like a sadness. They're like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, no, I think if I walked up on a dead body in the woods and somebody was videoing me, I'd be like, yeah, we need to call the cops and get out of here. I don't know if this was suicide or murder, and I'm not going to stick around to find out. You know, I wouldn't be like, let's riff on this.
But yeah,
But in his defense, he was going there expecting to find dead people,
yeah.
and that's what happened.
But yeah, that's Ichi Killer, Ichi the Killer, one of the strangest, weirdest. It's one of those movies like this is very well done. I never want to see that movie again.
Yeah, I've seen it once, and I can say, well, I watched that.
I've seen it twice now.
Yeah.
I mean, there is more to pick up on in a second viewing, but like I don't know if you want to put yourself through that. So it is very like a uniquely upsetting movie. So, um, um, yeah, and they did do a prequel to this, but yeah, I think Mike has like 5 different sequel series to his name because like, I'm not sure if the sequels are any good, but oh well. Because there are 2 sequels to Dead or Alive, which is ridiculous. Because if you've seen the end of Dead or Alive, it's like, what's because it has a ridiculous ending where basically the world blows up. And then the next movie is kind of like a Mad Max apocalypse thing with Yakuza. I think so. I don't know.
That's the thing. Apocalypse, the Yakuza.
I heard about there's one movie that called Crow Zero, which that has a sequel. I know people like that one where it's basically like the Warriors, but like with high school gangs fighting each other.
Huh.
But yeah, a lot of Mike's movies are streaming. Like a bunch of them are on Tubi. Like that's where Nathan saw. If you want the most interesting experience of getting them with Olive Garden commercials.
Yep.
And like
From our table to yours. Somebody's nipples on a plate. Oh, okay.
And like I said, you can go to Internet Archive and find Shield of Straw. That one's pretty good. That one you have to. That one will be weird because I remember the subtitles function being in a weird place because it doesn't come on automatically. It's like, oh, is this the compromise? We don't get subtitles and this is free. And then, but I found them. They're just kind of like weird to locate.
So now I have to learn Japanese.
No, it's just like there's like 2 different setting buttons. Like there's one setting button when you have it full screen. There's like a different setting button when you have it like minimized or just like looking at the internet page. And then when you go to the settings, there's like it's easily get confused, and like the way my browser was representing it, it had like if you clicked on the subtitles, it'd give you like all these features like, well, how big do you want the subtitles and what color do you want them? And that was all getting in the way of the button to just turn them on.
Oh, okay.
It might be different if you use a different browser. I was using Chrome and it came up all weird, but that also could be the compromise of Internet Archive's movie player. But
Well, I would just like that someone would be so dedicated to this proposition. It's like, well, I must invest the next 5 years of my life to learning so I can watch this.
um, but yeah, Nathan, your first movie. What do you think of Ichi the Killer?
Well, it's definitely it's different. It's definitely a view of it's definitely a kind of cinema I've never indulged in before, of just like, Japanese horror cinema. Um where there's not like anything overtly supernatural, but everyone's so evil. It's like, well, these people must be demons.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's this messed up. So, and it's yeah, a lot of long-term manipulation plots and things that don't all, like a lot of things in Japanese storytelling. It's like it doesn't hold together. Sometimes the logic isn't there, but then again, it's not meant to be because it's just so over the
Yeah.
top. It's so crazy.
Hey, yeah, I mean that's
It's
one Mike. That's the thing that Mike is known for, his provocateur stuff. But like a lot of his work isn't that way. But it's when he does it, that's what people pick up on. It's like, this is crazy. You got to see this. Because I definitely think like when you see like Eli Roth stuff, that just is like, what's the grossest thing I can show you? And like, don't you think that's gross? Where it's like, it feels like when Mike does it, it, it feels more purposeful rather than just trying to gross you out. It's like, no, he's showing you how crazy this person is, rather than like,
well,
let's show you innocent people being tortured, was what Eli Roth does a lot. So
yeah. I mean, this thing essentially came from a comic book,
yeah.
a very ultra violent, over the top, crazy comic book, and it's like, let's bring it to screen. And so this wasn't like written with intent.
Yeah.
It was like there was already source material here. It's just how do we bring it to life?
Um,
And it also it gets into like art house territory, which is kind of interesting. It gets into that like challenging
yeah,
filmmaking, and which that makes it fun. But then also people are just like just there's a lot of so much sex and violence in it, and it's very overt. It definitely takes a lot of influences from a lot of things I've seen.
yeah,
Um, and I'm not going to say I disliked it. It's just not one that's like, how do you share this with people?
yeah,
Like, hey, you want to sit down and watch this together?
yeah,
No, you can watch this by
yeah.
yourself. I couldn't imagine being in a theater and this was going on. Not sober, at least. I mean, it's just like, hey, just keep bringing booze until I say stop.
Yeah, if you look at the reviews for us, it's like it's fairly well reviewed, but it is like a mix of stuff where it's like this is deplorable, and then it's like a very challenging film by Mike. It explores our worst natures of ourselves, and
But it doesn't seem to be like you said. It's not a gross out film.
no,
It's like there's horrible, weird stuff going on, and everyone in it is hateful.
yeah.
But it also just kind of makes sense. It's like, what do you think like criminals are like? Not fun people.
um, but yeah, and it's a different level of violence because like like violence in Friday the 13th movies, like in some ways that's worse because you're just like waiting for presumably innocent people to get killed in clever ways, and then like you cheer
Yeah.
at them being killed.
Yeah, who's getting their head dunked in a fryer? It's like the worst way you could die. But yeah,
um, although it was really funny in Jason X where they just has the ladies in the sleeping bag and just banging them against a tree.
yeah,
But in there, they're presumably virtual, so it's okay. So,
yeah.
but yeah, again, he has 100 movies out there. Like I said, they're all of like quality. So, um, I don't know what you would say about the quality of this movie. Does it feel like the budget hurt it or anything like that, or do you feel like they made what they wanted to?
I think they did what they wanted
Okay.
to. And I think because it's like a super foreign film, it's like, yeah, you're going to give this a
Yeah.
pass. Because, like you said, we can't judge the quality of the actors. We can't, I mean, there's acting traditions in Japan that are very unusual.
Yeah.
They're way more performative and loud than what we would do. And considering this guy worked in those genres like kabuki and other things, and it's like, yeah, bad guys are basically, the main bad guy in this movie had a demon mask on. That was his
Yeah.
face because it was all scarred up and weird. So he looked like a demon, which is something that comes through Japanese culture all the time. So that's
Yeah, and the scars on his face probably had some symbolic meaning that I don't pick up on or
yeah.
something like that. So,
Well, I know that just in Japanese culture, like just demons are they are as strong and palpable a force as they are in like Christian culture of
yeah,
demons. They just mean something a little different. The origins are a little different. So the Japanese mainly like Zen Buddhists or
yeah,
something.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have no idea what that means. But yeah, demons are just as scary. The same demons that are in like The Exorcist, or it's like it has the same cultural force in Japan, just it's manifested slightly
Or
different.
they have the one weird demons where it's kind of like they they're kind of like zombified people, and but then they have like their hands out like this, and they kind of like bunny hop. It's
Yeah,
like very specific. It's like a thing that, um, or you got like I think it's like in I think it's like in Singapore. They have some weird demon culture where it's just like a head with just like organs off of it, and like it eats people at night or something like
yeah, I've
that.
heard of things. Yeah, they have scary demons in Japan, Southeast Asia. I think Korea has versions of it. I don't know about China, but I'm sure they
Yeah.
all have something like that. But we have more like they seem to have like generalized demons where it's like yeah, and some of them do very horrible things. Or we're the ones who have like categories and subcategories in the West. It's like you got this kind of demon, that kind of demon. Then you got fairies and elves and other things which are good or bad or indifferent, like imps. Like they're not good or bad, but they're mischievous, and they have mischievous demons in Japan too. And then they have women that you have sex with, and they turn into foxes and they steal your soul. And it's like they got the what's that called, the kitsune or something. They have stuff like that in Japan.
Yeah, I remember that was on. They had something like that in one of those Love, Death, and Robots cartoons,
Mhm.
which I'm like I
Yep.
didn't understand, but now you say that it's like okay, that must have deeper meaning than that was what I was getting at. So.
Oh yeah, the kitsune. There's um somebody did something like it was a white guy, but he was writing stories about like fiction about the occupation of Japan at the end of World War II and how like U.S. Marines ran afoul of a kitsune and it was like stealing their energy or whatever. And they talked to this Japanese guy who was willing to help him kill it. It's kind of a cool story. Like a Kindle short or something you could
Yeah.
read, but it was written by an American kind of through that lens. So
Huh.
yeah, so it's like yeah, it was like American expeditionary Marines occupying Japan, fighting Japanese demons with 45s and winning. It's like, all you need is some good old American firepower to stop this cursed demon.
That's what we learned last week with Way of the Gun. We know we can do it with 45. Just
Yeah, you can
got
do
it.
a
If you
lot.
got good reloads, man, you can just rain fire on that.
Oh yeah,
um, yeah, I haven't attempted to watch any of Mike's like like children friendly movies. I mean, there's one that's called like Zebra Man, where it's basically just a guy who's like a zebra who has like zebra power superhero, but I don't know if that's
interesting.
streaming anywhere. It seems like his more provocative stuff is easier to find than rather than his stuff probably meant for Japanese children that probably doesn't come over here and translate, whereas violence and
No,
horror does. um, well, we're sending a probe into space containing the supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from Ichi the Killer are we shoving into space?
just all the worst. You pick the worst scenes from the movie and intersperse them with Olive Garden commercials. That will set the right mental frame for observe. It will inadvertently put you in the right headspace to enjoy this movie. It's the weirdest thing I've ever. I almost thought about writing like some comment like, "Don't run like food commercials during this particular movie," but it's all done by
I remember it was a great one. I don't know if it's true or not, but somebody had recorded like a Battlestar Galactica episode where like the character shoots their brains out and like it cuts to commercial and it's like a pizza commercial where like the pizza um sauce is like flying out of the screen like like the brains getting splattered all
nice.
over.
Yeah, I can see that happening. It was really jarring to me. I thought it would the first time it happened, I was like, "Wait, is this a joke?" Because when they put those commercials in these movies, they're just doing it at like a time
Yeah.
space. Like there's no like, oh, it's 7 minutes in, run one or 12 minutes. Actually, Tubi's pretty good. I think I only watched like 4 commercials
Okay.
for a 2 hour, 15-minute movie. That's
Yeah.
fine because it saved me $5. So it's like, yeah, but it was so weird. I was like giggling. I was like, this is ridiculous. Because literally the one scene, it was literally like that, and then it's like lasagna.
Yeah, you want to like record it and send it to Olive Garden executives. Like, do you see what Tubi's doing to you? uh,
I mean, I don't think I've been to an Olive Garden in 10 years.
did it make you want to go to an Olive Garden now? Did the advertising
No,
work?
I can't eat anything in an Olive Garden anymore except salad. Everything there is like a carbohydrate of some
Yeah.
kind. So, and I'm trying to, do better with that. I mean, not like you saw any evidence of that when I was in Iowa, but it's like I'm on
Yeah,
vacation. Yeah, let's just roll up a pizza and eat it.
You can find us at Letterbox username VHE. 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving Ichi the Killer?
I'm gonna give Ichi the Killer 4 stars just for good old fashioned Japanese weirdness, which I enjoy, and kind of watching a movie that I wasn't very into the first 15 minutes, but then started to enjoy as time went on.
Yeah.
I really thought this was good. I'll tell you, the first 15 minutes of this, when I was like, what? I thought this was going to be painful. But then I started like doing some like sub reading while the movie was playing. It's like, okay, now because I figured I'd come on here and it's like, I'm just going to be incoherent and have to let Colin explain this because I'm really not feeling it. But give it some time. It'll work. It's not for everyone though.
Oh, no.
Don't sit down with your wife or girlfriend. Like, hey, well, you're going to love this. This is going to be the best thing ever.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, would you consider it an original movie or just Japanese weirdness? Like, does it feel like it's doing something different, or is it just like weaving in and out of genres?
I can see why it came over here. I can see why people in America would watch this and know about
Okay.
it. It's not just weirdness for the sake of pure weirdness. Is it the coolness of like something like Akira or the stuff that originally got me into like watching some Japanese animation / movies? No, it's not like that, but it is kind of its own thing. It's like because an organized crime horror film that, I mean, it doesn't ever, it takes itself seriously, but it's also so crazy at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like it's a weird. You don't do that here,
Yeah.
so it's interesting to see it. And then as as the movie decoheres in the third act to like this dream logic, it's like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm watching some weird Lynch stuff here. Something pulling me in.
um, but you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. You can there we have listener support. You can listen to us. You can support us at either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. Cancel any time. You can rate our podcast on our platform of choice. You can rate us for whatever you want, but the only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. So, give us the highest rating because you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect, and you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. You can watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.